So, one thing I want to show you guys to start the Legion section of Chronicle Volume 4 is grandeur. One thing that I argue for World of Warcraft all the time, and this is perhaps why certain beings are perceived to be a certain size or of a certain power scale, is because it is very difficult to represent the grandiousness of things that exist in fantasy to a video game. It's hard to translate that scale. And this, I think, is an excellent example of that scale. This is the art of the Avatar of Sargeras' defeat. That down there, those little guys, that's us. That over there in the corner is obviously the Avatar. It is fucking huge. It is huge. Like, the one that we fought in the game was about as tall as that thing's wrist is, laying flat. So that's what I mean by scale. We never are really playing to the true scale. So when we're on the seat of the Pantheon with the Titans, we're roughly about their size. And I think that much of that has to do with scale. It could also be that the pocket in which we are existing kind of auto-scales beings to it so that they are relative to each other in some capacity. The Titans may have done this in an effort to aid things like the Azerothian heroes to defeat Argus while on the seat of the Pantheon. Or it could just be the inability to represent scale as they would want to. So the Titans are supposed to be really big. And when you think about Azeroth, it's a very large body as far as I can tell, larger than any of the other bodies orbiting it, massively so, at least it appears that that is the case, on the maps. It appears to me, sorry, 1 second here. Snail King, thank you very much for the 39-month resub, bro. That's a big one. If he's that big, he must be packing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So Leslie, thank you for gifting us a sub earlier as well. Yeah, I got that one. So anyway, the point is that Sargeras is fucking huge. Literally massive next to our world, right? And then when he gets pulled to the seat of the Pantheon, he's about the size of the Titans. So I guess he's the same size. What I'm trying to suggest is that either something about that seat, which is very possible that it is manipulating spatial space itself and matter within that space in an orderly way in some capacity, which could also be why Argus kind of turns blue after he comes out of the furnace, as it were. Or I could be just completely wrong about that. Anyway, the point there is that I think that the Titans are meant to be very, very big. And so is Argus. And so is the Avatar of Sargeras. But we don't really truly get a sense of that in the game as it would exist in a fantasy universe. This is why I said the other day, if you were here on stream, you might remember this, I said, try to think about World of Warcraft as if it were real life. And that might sound silly because it's a video game and it's clearly not. But just like, how else do you exist in a universe if you can't pretend what if it was real? So think about it in those terms. The true scale of these things is frightening. The Avatar of Sargeras may stand like 50 to 100 stories tall. Like 500 to like 1,000 feet tall. Which is like
all the negativity about Titan POV
a lot of meters. Okay, I don't know how many meters that is off the top of my head. It's like 3 feet per meter, give or take? So you're looking at 333 meters tall, potentially? Think about how tall that is. That's fucking crazy. Deathwing is also gigantic, right? It's still small compared to Bahamut in Final Fantasy, which is mind-blowing to consider. One other thing I'd like to point out, I guess, about the art here, they make good use of some of the transformative effects of Fel. Let me show you this again. Fel often overwrites what it comes in contact with, kind of causes this black and green, almost volcanic-looking growth upon it. This is very common amongst Fel corruption, and you can see it happening to the tomb itself. I also think it's interesting how they turn that maiden's face to be looking basically directly at the fucking perspective, because these maidens and things on the wall are actually supposed to be looking Well, I guess this is also in the lower chamber, which is interesting. I don't remember if there actually is a maiden in the lower chamber, so we might have to go check that out. But anyway, the point is, it's like looking right at us, which I think is, I don't know, just kind of fucking creepy. It just looks creepy to me. Can't be the only one. And also, I think the art style that they use to depict the kind of tendrils going through the twisting nether, I think that's pretty fascinating. I think, like, that's a really, really big portal. And look, it has a Titan gateway behind it. You see that? Guys, does this imply that this Titan gateway was connected to Argus? Where did this go? Has this always been there? Was it always connected like that? And if it was, what would that mean? Why would the Titans have had a waygate that went to Argus? It led KJ's ship. That's what I've always wondered, is like, did KJ architect that? Did he? It sent us to the ship, no? It did. So Kil'jaeden, you know, presumably, you know, sets it up so that the teleporter takes us onto his ship, which is in the twisting nether. And then from the I guess it's not really so much proven that the gate connects to Argus, but perhaps that it connects to the twisting nether. But again, how do gateways between worlds actually work? What are they connecting through? Like, the dark portal was a fully established gateway and it went through the twisting nether. Correct? Like, you traverse the nether to go through these types of portals, I'm pretty sure. So if that's the case, then, like, the portal went somewhere. And it's not a demon portal. Like, this is a Titan portal. And it looks like a very powerful one. In fact, could this have been... No, that doesn't make any sense. Could this have been powered? How do they power it? Gotta be like the Nightwell, right? Or the Temple of Elune? The warship? Is it the Souls? Did they have a sort of engine that could power this thing? I mean, you do run across a soul engine in the raid. It's a boss. Likely ley lines? Isn't the Tomb of Sargeras and the Nighthold built upon a gigantic confluence of ley lines? Isn't that like what forms to make the Nightwell? Pretty sure we're gonna read about that. Anyway, this is just the first piece of art. I mean, we're sitting here having this discussion over it, but this is just the first piece. I haven't even read anything yet. Visual art, visual storytelling is really powerful in World of Warcraft. So I make sure to take a lot of time looking at the art. I think a lot of people look at art and they're like, oh, pretty colors. And then they kind of move on. But I don't think that's how you should look at it. I think visual art, especially in World of Warcraft, is an immense part of the storytelling. Which is why I try to take note of things like how these tendrils of fell energy are kind of forming into this portal-like beam. And I just think that's interesting. There are tendrils that move in a similar way, I think in the Elisand room, or maybe in the bottom room with the chronomatic anomaly? I don't remember. We need to tour the Tomb of Sargeras, or not TOS, we already did that one, but Nighthold. We need to tour, because that's a fucking fire-ass raid. I'm gonna say it. Nighthold's the best raid of all time. And I know that's a hot take because Ulduar exists, okay? And Antorus also exists, which is a really good one, but I think Nighthold is the best raid they ever made. Mechanically, lore-wise, grandeur and scale, visuals, story, I don't know. The story and lore-wise are the same thing, but I think Nighthold's S tier. Legion had the best raids ever. I'm gonna be honest, I did all the raids in Mists. I did all the raids in WoD. I did all the raids in Legion. I did all the raids in BFA. I've done all the raids in Dragonflight. I'm gonna be honest, bro. This is gonna be a hot take, dude. I think Dragonflight has better raids. Not from a lore perspective necessarily, or an epicness, but I think Dragonflight has the best raids of any expansion. I think they're so fucking clever. I think the mechanics visually are very well done. I feel like they give you better tells than they ever have. I feel like the size of the, like, dude. The fucking, I don't know, the Dream Raid's pretty wild to me. That's fucking crazy. Aberrus is also nuts. This is one of the best raids ever, in my opinion. This is fucking crazy-ass raid. But I'm also a lore nut, so it's, like, big for me in that way. But okay, I'm gonna read you this whole thing here. This is the Legion Chapter 3 opening section. Tomb of Sargeras. 32 years after the Dark Portal. We're gonna fly over here real quick. The might of the Burning Legion had threatened Azeroth many times over now. Centuries ago, a powerful guardian of Tirisfal, a mage named Egwin, had battled an avatar of Sargeras and narrowly managed to prevail. However, even with all her mighty powers, she could not destroy the avatar's body, which I just think is very fascinating. To ensure that the avatar would never rise again, she sealed it away in the sunken temple of Elune, in the middle of the ocean, where none could reach it. Interred with the body were powerful artifacts the Titan had used to combat her, including the jeweled scepter of Sargeras and the Eye of Sargeras. Imprisoning his artifacts with him might be one of the most idiotic things you could do, and maybe that's a hot take for me, but they should have all probably been hidden in different places. Why would you hide all the goods together? You know what I mean? With the guy who would, the body of the guy who would use them. What a weird choice. This hold became known the Tomb of Sargeras, and for centuries, many tried to access it. They all inevitably failed. The original Gul'dan sought the Eye of Sargeras amid the Second War, even raising the tomb and Thaldranoth, the island that held it, above the sea. He planned on seizing the powers of the Eye for himself, so there's that Thaldranoth thing you were talking about. It's the very land that it sits upon. Though his lieutenants sought to retaliate, Sargeras commanded them to wait. It was only after Gul'dan razed the Broken Shore and the tomb that the Dark Titan permitted his forces to tear the Warlock to pieces. And so I think that's pretty fascinating. Original Gul'dan only got as far as razing the tomb. They knew that he was going to betray him, so after it was razed, he let them fucking tear him up, right? That's the whole story. But what's happened in the game, and what I read through in Chronicle as well, is that alternate Gul'dan is brought in to do what? Finish the job of the original Gul'dan. And using the past failures of OG Gul'dan, Kil'jaeden was able to manipulate this alternate Gul'dan into doing what the other one wouldn't do. Not betray them. So where one Gul'dan failed, they found another to finish the job. But either way, they picked Gul'dan. And I find it very fascinating that it's through the manipulation of his other self that they were able to convince him. It's almost like they played out like a destiny of sorts and then figured out how to use that to manipulate the next into not doing that. I mean, that's what they did. I think that's pretty interesting. The infamous demon hunter Illidan similarly broke into the tomb to obtain the eye, seeking a way to defeat the Lich King after the Third War, and this is the Frozen Throne stuff that I really need to play. I'd love to play. At 1,100 subs, I will commit to playing that. I think it's just the last 3 or 4 campaigns on there. Primus type shit? Yeah, it is kind of Primus type shit. It really is. So let's see. Though he had more success than the original Gul'dan, he was later defeated at the Black Temple. Led by Maiev Shadowsong, wardens from the contingent of elite night elves known as the Watchers brought his body, along with all his demon hunters, the Illidari, to the Vault of the Wardens for eternal imprisonment. Yikes, dude. The fact that they even do that is just like, yikes. That's Titan shit right there. With this, the tomb remained abandoned for years, until the schemes of the Bronze Dragon Kairos Dormu and Garrosh Hellscream changed everything, and history began to repeat itself. As alternate Gul'dan tumbled through the Black Gate on Draenor, and into the Horde and Alliance's native Azeroth, he remained under the thumb of the Legion. Although his efforts on Draenor had ended in failure, with his fell horde spent and his Shadow Council defeated, Gul'dan still had plenty of allies. Archimonde was far from the only powerful being within the Burning Legion. When Gul'dan arrived on Azeroth, he was contacted by Archimonde's brother, Kil'jaeden. And I wonder how liberally they're using terms like brother, because I don't think they were literally brothers. Pretty sure that's just like he's like, my brother, you know, it's not like, I don't think it was literal. Another once wise Eredar, leader turned demon lord. I think that's interesting how they portray him as well. Another once wise Eredar leader turned demon lord. Kil'jaeden had been there when the Gul'dan native to this timeline, had tried and failed to overthrow his demonic masters. He had personally watched as demons ripped the traitor apart, and thus knew that if he sent this alternate Gul'dan to the Tomb of Sargeras, the Warlock would again attempt to betray him. Still desiring to seize his chance, Kil'jaeden filled the Warlock's mind with his voice, and kept him on a tight leash. He ordered the Warlock to travel across the ocean and infiltrate the Tomb of Sargeras, where a portal to the Twisting Nether could be empowered, allowing the Legion a new gateway to Azeroth. So what I was saying earlier of where does this portal go? According to Kil'jaeden, it's a portal to the Twisting Nether. That's pretty fucking crazy. Gul'dan, power hungry as ever, agreed. Although throughout his journey to the tomb, Gul'dan's every move was dogged by Khadgar. More than anyone, the Archmage knew that Azeroth would never be safe while Gul'dan lived, and he bent his considerable skill toward tracking down the Warlock. By the time Gul'dan reached the Tomb of Sargeras, Khadgar was practically at his back, and had even received some measure of support of Maev's Shadowsong. Maev was still ahead of the Watchers, who kept Illidan and his Illidari imprisoned to this very day. And she feared their vault, also located in the Broken Isles, to be the Legion's true target. Although Gul'dan knew his pursuers were close at hand, Kil'jaeden ordered him to enter the Tomb of Sargeras. The Warlock disabled the ancient locks and loudly blasted open the doors. Khadgar pursued him while Maev and her wardens left to secure the Vault of the Wardens. Deep within the complex, Khadgar caught up to Gul'dan. They engaged in a duel of magic, but Kil'jaeden commanded Gul'dan to exercise restraint. He had plans for the Archmage, and would see no harm done to him. And then Khadgar is literally instrumental to our assault, not only on the Tomb of Sargeras, but also the bridging of Azeroth to Argus. The Lord of Ravens will turn the key. This is part of what it's talking about with how Illidan activates the portal, or the keystone later, ripping open the portal, and how Khadgar is necessary to get them out of there. I think the Deceiver's done a pretty good job here, if I'm being honest with you. Let me continue reading. Gul'dan blinded Khadgar, cloaking himself with another spell while he broke Egwin's ancient seals on the tomb. The Archmage recovered and located Gul'dan as he approached the final seal. He knew he did not possess enough power to both break the barrier and defeat Khadgar. Gul'dan pleaded with Kil'jaeden to grant his lowly servant a portion of the tomb's powers. Kil'jaeden still did not trust Gul'dan, but he ultimately relented, and I think this is in that short series that came out before Legion, or in the middle of Legion, or whatever it was. Pretty sure it's like a visual, what the fuck do they call that? Like a cinematic, 2.5D cinematic, or whatever you would call it. It says here, with this new fell power, Gul'dan crushed the final seal. Before the unbridled power of the tomb could charge the portal below, so the tomb itself was charging the portal, the Warlock took it for himself. He attacked Khadgar, hurling him from the chamber and collapsing the only path inside. Emboldened, Gul'dan held the power to challenge the might of all Azeroth, without the direct aid of the Legion, but he also realized the fight would be unending. On his Draenor, he had lost to Grommash Hellscream, to the champions of the Horde and the Alliance, and ultimately Sorry. And ultimately to the Draenei and rebel orcs. Bringing the Legion to Azeroth was his best chance at capturing the victory that had thus far eluded him. As Khadgar and Maiev re-entered the chamber and hurled seemingly ineffective attacks at Gul'dan, the Warlock assessed the risks and found a solitary path to power pointless. Reluctantly, he relinquished his new fell powers to activate the portal to the Twisting Nether. Kil'jaeden commended his servant for his choice, a wiser one than the Gul'dan of his timeline had made. So you see how this alternate Gul'dan coming back is pretty instrumental to the plans here. Khadgar and Maiev fled as the portal opened and demons erupted from it, trampling their way through the tomb. Within moments, the fell creatures overran the broken shore and the sky darkened. Maiev headed north to secure the Vault of the Wardens and inform her people, while Khadgar changed himself into a raven. Word had to fly fast to the world's leaders. The Burning Legion had returned. And it goes into the battle for Broken Shore. One thing that I wanted to note is that the Fall of Varian Wrynn, it says specifically, Gul'dan personally executed the heroic king, using his fell powers to reduce Varian to ash. That's specifically what it says to describe it in Chronicle. I thought that might be noteworthy for you guys to hear. There's a section here called Mantle of Leadership that I want to read to you, because this pertains, I think, to the jailer and some other things. I could be wrong. So, let me read this. So, Mantle of Leadership. The Horde and the Alliance were still recovering from the battle for the Broken Shore, is what that should say. In such short order, they had been reduced to a fraction of their former strength. They had lost resources, allies, leaders. Before they could get back in the fight, the Horde and Alliance had to set their affairs in order and pass the Mantle of Leadership. In the Horde capital of Orgrimmar, War Chief Vol'jin was still suffering from the grievous wounds he had sustained in battle. As he sat slumped, dying on his throne, Vol'jin received a vision from the Loa. The Loa had guided Vol'jin throughout his life. Now, at the end, they would give him one last piece of wisdom. They told him to appoint Sylvanas Windrunner as his successor. Vol'jin was confused by the request, but he would not question their will. With his dying breath, Vol'jin told Sylvanas to step out of the shadows and lead the Horde as its new war chief. The Banshee Queen was outwardly honored, but inside, she struggled to contain her shock. This marked the second of the jailer's prophecies that had come to pass. Though she dared not tell anyone, even those closest to her, of her experiences in the afterlife, she quietly sent word to the jailer, pledging herself officially to his cause, and mulled these recent developments as she stood watch over Vol'jin's funeral pyre. And she does stand there for a long fucking time in that cinematic. I remember that. You guys remember that cinematic when Vol'jin fucking got his funeral pyre done? She stands there for a long time.
Windrunner, come forward.
War Chief.
The way it shows her hand right there, by the way, is really similar to how they do the shot in the cinematic with Sourfang, where it shows her hand with the shadows coming out of it, and then she like closes her fist or whatever, and they go away. It's really similar shot.
War Chief.
The lower spirits say death will claim me soon.
In the end, death claims us all. But the Horde will live on.
I have never trusted you. Nor would I have ever imagined in our darkest time that you would be the one to save us. The spirits have granted me clarity, a vision. They whisper a name. Many will not understand, but you must stay part of the show.
among you will help me avenge him?
And this is corroborated by Veramathras, his dialogue in Taurus the Burning Throne, where he says, "So she found me at last, sent her underlings to finish the job. Tell me, when she seized your throne of hides and bones, was your allegiance forced? No. I'd wager you surrendered it willingly, or were convinced you did. It matters not. You are blind to the darkness in your midst. So I do think that this all kind of, corroborates together in a way that is relatively cohesive. And it makes me wonder if the jailer is really what they had planned for her, or if it was supposed to be something else. But this is very clearly set up. I mean, even the way it's portrayed in the cinematic, I think, fits pretty well after he passes. And what Veramathras says, I mean, this is Legion dialogue, So I think that, I don't know, the continuity, at least through suggested stuff, is there. So yeah, the Banshee Queen was outwardly honored, but inside she struggled to contain her shock, and she does have a look of shock on her face when it happens. This marked the second of the jailer's prophecies that had come to pass, though she dared not tell anyone. Even those closest to her of her experiences in the afterlife, she quietly sent word to the jailer, pledging herself officially to his cause. And mold these recent developments as she stood watch over Vol'jin's funeral pyre. It says here, but even in this quiet moment of introspection and mourning, the Legion found opportunity to aim at the new war chief. Agents of the Legion infiltrated Vol'jin's funeral and were only intercepted by the Illidari, who had come to Orgrimmar seeking a place among the Horde's forces. After saving her life, Sylvanas welcomed them into her ranks. So the Legion sent assassins to try to kill her. It says here, after saving her life, Sylvanas welcomed them into her ranks, though she told them that a betrayal akin to the one Illidan had committed would land them a fate worse than death. With the Legion assassins rooted out and the Illidari settled, Sylvanas turned back to business and appointed the orc Varrock Saurfang as her second in command. Saurfang was leader of the orcs. Besides an intelligent warrior and a capable weapons expert, his leadership would be vital in the fight against the Legion. Just as the Horde buried their dead and passed on power to new leaders, the same was true of the Alliance. Stormwind held a great funeral to commemorate King Varian Wrynn. Nearly every citizen mourned as the great king's empty coffin was entombed at Lion's Rest, overlooking the harbor. The king's body could not be recovered. So Prince Anduin Wrynn, still a young man and now without either of his parents, gained little closure from the affair. Anduin was set to succeed his father, but he wrestled with the prospect of leadership. His father had distinguished himself as a gifted warrior, but martial prowess had not come so easily to the prince. He had trained under the Draenei leader Prophet Velen in study of and devotion to the light, and only considered violence as a last resort. But now, as king, he would need to lead his people into battle against a powerful enemy who threatened their very survival. Anduin was not alone. However, he had the full might of the Alliance at his back. Anduin was not alone, however. He had the full might of the Alliance at his back. Prophet Velen and Gen Greymane, the king of Gilneas, knew that the young king would struggle with the weight of his father's responsibilities. Together with the other Alliance leaders, they promised to help Anduin find his footing, even amid so much uncertainty and strife. On the advice of his new peers, the young king began ordering Alliance troops to both Stormheim and Dalaran. They would work in parallel with the champions of the Horde to strike back against the Legion. There's a section on the next page about the Kirin Tor. It says here, it says about Magni Bronzebeard. Merging with the earth had allowed Magni to hear the voice of Azeroth itself. The World Soul had warned him of both Sargeras and the Legion, so this is the Whispers of a Frightened World quest, I'm pretty sure, and said there was only one way to defeat them. When the Titans had first visited Azeroth, they had created powerful tools to help order the planet. These artifacts, which are actually depicted in the Tomb of Sargeras as being wielded by some of the primary female leaders of the Kaldori. That's what this art is right here. I think this indicates that perhaps the Night Elves were once directly ordering things, perhaps at the behest of the Titans. I don't know. This is pretty interesting. You can see it on the wall over there. Tidestone of Golganeth, the Tear of Elune, among the others, hidden kind of behind the walls. I think that's pretty fascinating. It says here, the Pillars of Creation held unimaginable power. They could easily close Gul'dan's portal to the Twisting Nether. So they can easily open it or get rid of it. Oh, what's up, Illidan? Don't mind me, I'm just trying to get a good shot here. Just jump on in there, bro. Do your thing. They could easily close the portal. There was only one problem. As Khadgar learned, the Pillars of Creation had been lost on the Broken Isles following the War of the Ancients. So they had them all prior to the War of the Ancients. Finding them would mean inching closer to the heart of Legion territory. Despite the risks, the leaders of the Kirin Tor rounded up as many powerful Horde and Alliance champions as they could find, and wove a spell to magically transport the entire city of Dalaran to the Broken Isles. While the champions searched for the pillars, the city would act as their base of operations. I almost feel like that's moving the whole city with a magical spell. That sounds very much like Seed of the Pantheon type shit. Rizadin. Illidan makes a view better? Yeah, I kind of agree. I want to read you this part. What is this part of? Oh, this is about the Order Halls. Yeah, I don't know why I marked this. I marked a section that says, to make matters worse, the Legion was spreading across Azeroth almost unchecked, penetrating every corner of the planet, from the Barrens to the Maelstrom to Karazhan. Though the Alliance and Horde were weak from the fight, order halls dedicated to every class were established to re-embolden or train up a new generation and hone the skills of existing members. Beyond instruction and knowledge sharing, these groups held information on ancient weapons that could be found and wielded anew. Across the world, heroes of every discipline gathered at their respective order halls to heal, train, and find fellowship. Armed with legendary weapons and backed by new leadership, they were ready to take the fight to the Legion. Not every weapon was unfamiliar to these fighters. Some came from leaders looking to pass along their mantles to new champions. Thrall was one such leader. He had been disheartened since the Mak'gora with Garrosh at the Stones of Prophecy. The Doomhammer felt like a dead weight in his hands, and the elements did not heed his call as they once had. Something was wrong, though he did not know what. And witnessing Vol'jin fall in battle, yo, thank you very much.
I really enjoyed your Warcraft 3 story playthrough, less than 3.
I'm glad, yeah, I really enjoyed it too. I thought it was fun. And I plan to do the Frozen Throne. Once we get to 1,100 subs, we will we'll start scheduling those and start banging those out too. Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for the 7-month sub with the Prime. Let's see. It says here, something was wrong and Thrall did not know what. Witnessing Vol'jin's fall in battle at the Broken Shore had only amplified this feeling. This problem turned to catastrophe when the Legion attacked the heart of Azeroth, the Shamanic Order Hall, and Thrall lost the Doomhammer in the ensuing fight. Fortunately, a champion stepped forward to retrieve the legendary weapon, but Thrall could not find it in himself to take up the Doomhammer once more. With some encouraging words, Thrall passed the weapon on to the worthy champion who had retrieved it, urging them to heed the call and lead the Earthen Ring in the fight against the Legion. For Thrall, his part in this fight was over. He and Agra packed up their children, intent on moving to Nagrand, though Thrall paid one final visit to Saurfang. He told Saurfang to keep watch over their people and to not let them be swayed from their path again. He had put the wrong trust in Garrosh, but he knew that what Saurfang had sacrificed for the Horde, including his son. Thrall trusted the Orc, even as he could not bring himself to fully trust Sylvanas. Pack the kids. Yeah, I'm gonna read to you about the Tidestone of Golganath. By the time the Horde and Alliance had rallied at Dalaran, both the Broken Shore and Suramar had been completely overrun by the Legion. Only one of the provinces that neighbored Dalaran remained free from demonic control, Esuna, the Haunted Island. In ancient times, Esuna had been a highborn paradise. But when the War of the Ancients began, the region became a battleground for Queen Ashara and the province's ruler, Prince Ferrandis. I think it's interesting to kind of think about the perspective of princes and queens having rights to different areas and stuff. The prince did not trust Ashara's demonic allies, and he planned to use one of the Pillars of Creation, the Tidestone of Golganath, to destroy the Well of Eternity, thus closing the Legion's portal to the Twisting Nether. Unfortunately, Ashara discovered the prince's plan. She traveled to the city of Narthalas, where she shattered the Tidestone. The destruction of the stone released a massive magical explosion that consumed Esuna and all who lived there. In one moment, the region's people were annihilated, but in the next, they returned. The elves had been cursed to walk the earth until the end of time, never knowing the release of death. It's pretty fucking horrifying as a result of shattering a Titan artifact. Over the ensuing millennia, few would come to resettle the region. Some among the Blue Dragonflight would make their home here alongside the Nightfallen, Nightborn who had been exiled from Suramar, as well as the Withered, Nightfallen who could not find a source of arcane magics to sate them, and thus fell into a feral state. I just realized the Saur and Saurfang was meant to reference the lizard dinosaur trait and not a play on words for sour. Nice. Well said. Well said, sir. Here's some more for you. The Sealing of Suramar. I'm going to read you the whole thing here. Long ago, Suramar had been a major trade city within a Night Elven empire. The ruling class had empowered themselves with the magic of the Well of Eternity, an arcane basin born from a wound in the world soul itself. In time, the upper caste of Night Elves became addicted to the powers that the magic well gave them. They began to call themselves the Highborn. For centuries, the Highborn ruled the Night Elves, uncontested until the War of the Ancients and the first invasion of the Burning Legion. The war began when the Highborn Queen Ashara made contact with Sargeras, who promised the Queen and her people untold power should they find a means of bringing him to Azeroth. Ashara trusted the Dark Titan and foolishly harnessed the energies of the Well of Eternity to open a portal for the Legion. The war only came to an end when Malfurion Stormrage used the Dragon Soul to reverse the portal through which the Burning Legion had entered. However, this altering of the well resulted in an apocalyptic implosion. Millions perished in a single instant, and the largest landmass on Azeroth, again reiterating, the largest landmass, not the only one, the largest landmass on Azeroth, the supercontinent of Kalimdor, was torn apart in an event known as the Great Sundering. Queen Ashara shielded herself and her closest followers from the blast, but they were not protected from its consequences. Her grand city fell into the Sundered Sea. In that moment, all seemed lost, but the voice of N'Zoth, the old god, whispered to her from the depths. And I feel that this is really implying that N'Zoth was in the Well of Eternity, which I have postulated before. Ashara struck a deal with the old god, one that would both save and condemn her people. Ashara and her highborn were corrupted by N'Zoth, transformed into monstrous, serpent-like creatures called Naga. In return, the old god tasked Ashara with finding a way to free him from his prison beneath the sea. Beneath the sea? I understand this. But for 1,000 years bound beneath these waves, he had already watched Ashara. He said he tasted her essence, which I really feel like also implies that he was imprisoned in the Well of Eternity. They say he was imprisoned, like, underground, but then, like, the final prison is, like, very overtly not only underwater, but seemingly designed intentionally to have been underwater. There's a mechanism that is used to give a bubble in the actual chamber where the mechanism is activated to open the thing, right? Kind of strange. The rest of the Night Elves suffered less monstrous fates. Suramar had broken from Ashara some time ago, as Grand Magistrix Elisand feared the monstrous demons and saw clearly the destruction of all that the Night Elves' empires had made beautiful. When she discovered that the Legion planned on repurposing Suramar itself as a new staging ground for their war, she sought to free her people from the Legion and Ashara's grasp. Again, let me read this again. Grand Magistrix Elisand feared the monstrous demons and saw clearly the destruction of all that the Night Elves' empire had made beautiful. So to me, this comes off very much like all the work that we put in ordering the world, all the things that we made beautiful with magic, the Titan fucking relics that they were using, the ones in the tomb here, this is what they're talking about. She doesn't want to destroy the work of the Titans. Well, it's not really their work, but their work using Titan relics. When she rediscovered... okay. With the Well of Eternity corrupted by the Legion's fell magic, the Night Elves of Suramar used the Eye of Aman'Thul to build themselves a new source of magic. The Night Well. That would satisfy their arcane needs. Atop the Night Well, by the way, when we do that raid, you're gonna see the Night Well is actually a well of souls. Gul'dan uses a spell in the last phase called Well of Souls, where he's very clearly pulling Night Elven souls out of the well. So what that means, guys, is that the power that what it implies to me is that the power of the arcane, at least in the ley lines that lead into the Night Well, they're powered by the souls of the dead. And that the Nightborn make themselves pretty by consuming the magical essence of dead souls. And that's why they turn feral if they stop eating it. And I don't know if it's really anima, but there are souls within it, and I don't think that's an accident. To further protect themselves from Ashara and the Legion, the Night Elves sealed off their city, and thus survived the catastrophic sundering unscathed. Cowards. Across millennia, the Night Elves who drew their power from the Night Well slowly changed, becoming a new race, distinct from the Night Elves. They became the Nightborn. So in the next image here, I think I can pull up this on... So, this art of the Keepers is really interesting to me. The camera will focus. Yeah, this art of the Keepers is really interesting. So first of all, they're all wielding the Pillars of Creation, except Tyr is... So you can see, Ra is holding the Eye of Aman'Thul up at the top behind them all. Freya's holding the Tear of Elune. Tyr is holding the Aegis of Agramar and his hammer, the Silver Hand. They look evil as fuck, bro. Yeah, they're scary looking. Arcades is holding the Hammer of Khazgoroth, which thematically doesn't make any sense to me. If Khazgoroth is fire and earth, how come the Hammer of Khazgoroth is like green lightning? I don't really get that. And then you have Thorim holding the Tidestone of Golganeth, seemingly as like a shield or like a fucking shamanic focus. And then he's also holding what I think is Valinir. Is that what that is? And the runes on all this stuff, they all have blue runes on them. You see that? Aegis of Agramar has blue runes. Hammer has blue runes. Khazgaroth thing has like blue and green runes on it. Tidestone has blue runes on it. Aman'Thul's fucking thing has blue runes on it. How come they all have that? Also, why doesn't Norganon have one, bro? It's fucking weird. Why doesn't Norganon have one? It's very menacing the way they all look. Also, all of their eyes are blue except Tyr. So when you look at it, fucking Arcades has blue eyes, Thorim's are blue, even Freya's are blue, which is weird because in the game they're supposed to be like green. At least they look blue to me. Yeah, they sure look blue to me. Ra's eyes are blue, except Tyr, his eyes are golden. And they say eyes are the windows to the soul. Maybe Tyr has an opportunity to break free from the status quo of the Titans, man. I think that's what should happen, man. I think Tyr, being an instrument for control of the Titans and realizing that that's what his purpose was, perhaps having in some capacity gained a level of sentience or free will that other things haven't, or maybe being restored in a way, has like maybe broken him of the depression spell that had been affecting the others. I would really love to see Tyr kind of break the mold a little bit. So I think that'd be a good thing. Also, there is a rune on the mace that Thorim is wielding that just kind of like flat out looks like one of the three kind of like domination runes. You know, the three-shaped thing. So that may or may not mean something. It appears that all of these relics are imbued with lightning. Besides the Tears of Elune and the Eye of Aman'Thul, like Agrimar's shield is lightning, Khazgaroth's hammer's lightning, Tidestone of Golganath has lightning coming off of it, the hammer that Thorim's wearing obviously has lightning, Ra has, you know, he's holding the Eye of Aman'Thul like a weird ring. I don't know, it's weird. They also all don't seem to have like lower bodies. They're like almost like revenants or like creepy apparitions. They're weird. Let me read you some more. A section to follow says, some 10,000 years after the Sundering, the champions of Azeroth came to Asuna seeking the Tidestone. They were shocked to find the region's residents engaged in a fight with not just the Legion, but the Naga too. As forces of the Horde and the Alliance clashed with the Naga to establish a foothold in Asuna, its ghostly residents encouraged them to seek out Prince Ferondis. Though many resented the prince for what had befallen Asuna, he still sought to protect his people and their remains. To repay the champions for their assistance in repelling the Naga, Ferondis led the adventurers to the ruins of Narthalos, where he and his former subjects guarded the pieces of the Tidestone. However, the heroes' mission was complicated when they learned that the Naga too were in pursuit of the mystic Tidestone. Queen Ashara had not wavered in fulfilling her end of N'Zoth's dark bargain. She had seen what the Tidestone was capable of, and knew that its power could be crucial in future plans to free her patron. It's dumb that she shattered it then. With the chaos of the war against the Legion, Ashara at last found the opportunity she needed to retrieve her prize. The champions of Azeroth had just located the fragments of the Tidestone when Naga agents of the Queen burst in and captured both the Pillar of Creation and the heroes. With the Tidestone in their hands, the Naga could at last harness its full power in service of the old gods. Ferondis was wise to Ashara's plans. He pursued the Naga back to their base of operations, fighting through their followers in an effort to free the champions before harm could come to them. Amid this rescue, he encountered a vision of Ashara herself. Okay, it says here, amid his rescue, Ferondis encountered a vision of Ashara herself, who tried to bargain with the prince, promising Ferondis that she would release him and his people from their curse, if only he would kneel before her. The prince knew better than to trust the Naga queen and rebuffed her offer. Yet even after he freed the heroes of Azeroth, the task of retrieving the Tidestone yet remained. Ashara's followers had absconded to their island stronghold, the Eye of Ashara, with the Pillar of Creation, and there they created a monstrosity that could vanquish the heroes. The heroes pursued the Naga there, and after a brutal battle against the Naga and the elemental terror they had summoned, they emerged triumphant. In the monster's remains, they found the Tidestone of Golganath, its fragments now unified. It's very weird. They create a monstrosity that brings the fragments of it together. It's very weird. The capture of the reforged Tidestone marked a turning point in the war against the Legion. Although the champions had suffered significant setbacks, hope remained. And one thing that I find curious is that it kind of implies that like Ashara didn't know the power of the Tidestone, but I think that the Temple of Elune betrays this. Because that's Queen Ashara holding the Tidestone. And I know that it's Queen Ashara because she has her signature pink gem on the middle of her chest. Like that's actually on her in-game model from the Well of Eternity dungeon as well. She's like easily identifiable because she has that. So it's in their stained glass art that Ashara had wielded it. This is obviously before she would have become a Naga and all that bad stuff happened. So the way Chronicle talks about Queen Ashara as though she didn't know, like, what the power of it was, is kind of hard for me to believe. And I think these are all different ancient Night Elven women of significance and power wielding them. I mean, look at this shit. Could that be Tyranda's successor right there? Or the one who came before her, pardon me, mentor or something? Can't remember what her name was. Or could, I don't know, like who, you know, this is important, I think. The identity of these women and why they're doing what they're doing. And on this, there's a black dragon breathing like purple flame. Like, what is that? What we know about history is weird. You see what I'm saying? When things in Chronicle, like, blatantly seem to kind of contradict the evidence in the game, I don't think these are narrative mistakes. I think that it's like revealing that history is obscured. Like, what we know is very little. They all look like they're sirens already. They almost kind of do. You can't see any of their legs, really. I guess maybe here. It's very weird, dude. The one at the tier could be, is that Haideen? Who's the first High Priestess of Elune? That's what I was thinking. Looks more like they're in dresses. That's kind of what I was going for. This one almost looks like pants. But like really long blue hair there. White hair. Almost maybe a hood over the hair. That's kind of what I was thinking. I don't know. I think it's pretty fascinating. Okay, so let me read some more. It says here, the capture, okay. And then the Hammer of Khazgarath. It says here, in ancient times, the Tauren living upon High Mountain and the Drogbar had suffered brutal oppression at the hands of Deathwing, the fallen dragon aspect who had been corrupted by the old gods. After the Sundering, the Black Dragon had retreated to his lair in High Mountain, which also held the Hammer of Khazgarath. There, Deathwing recovered for many years, gathering his strength for a new fight. Eventually, the great Tauren hero Holn High Mountain managed to steal the hammer, and he used its powers to banish the Black Dragon to the elemental plane of Deepholm. With Deathwing's expulsion, his lair was raided. Holn and his allies found a clutch of black dragon eggs, and the Tauren hero used the hammer to purify one of the eggs. From this egg hatched Ebonhorn, an uncorrupted black dragon. The wards installed around High Mountain cleansed the region of void corruption, allowing Ebonhorn to mature free of the void power that had driven his kind to madness. As thanks, Ebonhorn, who later took the draconic name Abyssian, remained in High Mountain, taking on a Tauren visage and becoming a spirit walker. There, he would watch over Holn High Mountain and his descendants for generations. Without the hammer, the heroes might have easily dispatched Dargrul, but wielding a pillar of creation, the Underking possessed near boundless might. He refused to be taken alive, and the heroes were forced into a vicious and dangerous fight. What Dargrul did not know was that the hammer respected only those possessing true strength, and it had found the Underking wanting in this regard. After a fierce battle, the heroes emerged triumphant, with the hammer finding the champions worthy to wield it. Isn't that like a Mjolnir thing for Thor? Why is the hammer of Khazgaroth work like Thor's hammer? Like, I get that it's like Titan and stuff, but like, I'm a little confused. Maybe it's just an inspiration type thing? I don't really know. As thanks for his efforts, Mela pledged her strength to the heroes of Azeroth. Right. Bro gets ordered and the first thing he does is deceive the Tauren. To continue, this is another section from the Soul Cage. While her troops traversed Stormheim in search of the Aegis, Sylvanas sought out Helya in Helheim on the precipice of the Shadowlands. So Helheim is like a border realm. It's something that exists along the boundary, and we're going to hear about another realm that's very similar to this, and that's called Thros, and that'll be in the Shadowlands section. But I want you to make a note of that. On the precipice of the Shadowlands, but not fully in it. In the realm, Maw of Souls is just a bunch of water and storms and shit like that, as far as I can tell. And there's a little bit of land, I guess. But, so I wonder maybe if it's linked to the Abyssal Maw, the elemental plane of water, in any capacity. Or if that has any meaning. It says here, Sylvanas met the Titan-forged sorceress. Helya was only too happy to help another ally of the jailer, particularly as she saw in Sylvanas an opportunity both to enrich herself and to take further revenge on Odin. Helya gave Sylvanas a powerful artifact called the Soul Cage, which could compel the soul of any being it was used on. Sounds like a fucking domination artifact, to be honest. With its power, Sylvanas could dominate the spirits of the Valkyr who remained loyal to Odin and bring them into her service. With the Soul Cage in hand, Sylvanas made for the Halls of Valor, where she planned on capturing Aegir, the leader of Odin's Valkyr. Let me continue this. It says, with Aegir imprisoned, the rest of the Valkyr would be forced to fall in line. So Aegir seemingly has some kind of authority and command over those Valkyr. So the thought was that by dominating Aegir, you basically auto-dominate all the other Valkyr because they have to listen to her. Maybe that's akin to like an Oathbreaker-esque kind of thing. Or maybe it's about oaths. Because we actually have a quest where we get to see someone become a Valkyr. That's what the dungeon is, I'm pretty sure. At least one part of it. Yeah. Okay. It says, Sylvanas would likely have accomplished her goal, were it not for the interference of Genn Greymane. Genn had tailed the war chief to the vault of Aegir at Skuld Ashil, watching as Sylvanas captured Aegir. While Sylvanas was distracted, exerting the artifact's power over the Valkyr leader, Genn struck. In the resulting skirmish, he stole the Soul Cage from Sylvanas and smashed it upon the ground. Aegir went free, and Genn, injured by Sylvanas' arrow, took his leave of the furious war chief. Sylvanas had been set back, but she felt far from defeated. Her mission had demonstrated the power and reach of the jailer, and how he could help her accomplish great things. Here we go. Let's watch that.
Treacherous banshee!
And I gotta say, I mean, it looks like domination, so they kind of were setting this up in Legion. It's what it looks like to me. Sure enough. It's not directly chains, but when you see the color in her face change here, I mean that's something.
You know not what you are meddling with.
Submit. The Valkyr.
3 rings? Is it? 1. Yeah, it sure is. Look at that. Wow. If that's the case, then this domination artifact is like doing the same ring action that Titan prisons do, which I think, you know, further suggests the connection between the Titans and domination. And that sure is what that is, isn't it? You have 3 clearly separatable rings. Wow. Yeah, good fucking eye, dude. Very nice. Yeah, that's what that is, isn't it? Sure looks like it to me. That's pretty wild. The ice dragon did attack Odin, no? Correct. She puts ice on him and then we take the... Yeah, we free the dragon brood there. The storm drakes.
Banshee! You know not what you are meddling with.
Submit. The Valkyr are mine.
Your quest for immortality has left you vulnerable. I will have my vengeance! For Varian! For Gilneas! For my son!
It seems I overestimated you. Old wolf.
You took my son's future. And now I've taken yours.
I wish for more from this rivalry. Yeah. Would have been nice. So yeah, that's that section. Let's read about Helya and Odin really quick, because those are the 2 nicest characters maybe ever. Right? I think we'd all agree on that. So let's read about that. It says, like Asuna, Stormheim was a region still suffering from the effects of an ancient conflict. Long ago, the Titan Keeper Odin fell into disagreement with the other Titan Keepers on Azeroth. He and the Titanforged sorceress Helya tore off a section of Ulduar, sending it high above the world. He called this stronghold the Halls of Valor, and he promised his Vrykul, Titan-forged creatures of iron, eternal life there. When they fell in battle, the spirits of these noble Vrykul would be transformed into Valkyr. Valajar, pardon me, warriors in service of the Titan Keeper. However, Odin needed someone to venture into the Shadowlands, the realm of the death, to ferry their souls back to Azeroth. Odin called for willing Vrykul to devote themselves to this task, but none answered. Even the mightiest Vrykul warriors were averse to shattering themselves in such a way, to spend eternity crossing the veil. In the absence of volunteers, Odin determined that the Vrykul would be made to serve his needs. Helya reproached Odin for considering this course of action and told the Titan Keeper that she would return the Halls of Valor to Ulduar if he continued to pursue it, but Odin would not listen. In a fit of rage, he destroyed Helya's physical form and twisted her soul into the first of the Valkyr, condemning her to an eternity of obedience, ferrying Vrykul spirits from the Shadowlands back to the Halls of Valor. Over time, but we learn that Valkyr are modeled off of the Kyrian. Over time, Odin forced Helya to create other Valkyr who were compelled to aid in her work. Through their efforts, the Halls of Valor were filled with fallen Vrykul, whom Odin remade into his storm-infused Valajar. These empowered warriors bolstered the Titan Keeper's forces and assured him that the ends of his dark work justified the means. This is like so Sargeras fractally, it's kind of insane. Through his Valajar, he could make Azeroth safe and honor the will of the Titans. His vision crumbled when Keeper Loken conspired against Odin and restored Helya's free will. With her freedom, the Titan-forged sorceress bent the arcane energies of Azeroth to her command and sealed the halls of valor, trapping Odin and all of his followers within. Then she set about creating a new realm, Helheim. From there, Helya ruled over the souls of fallen Vrykul. Odin is a huge dick. Odin is a huge dick. Yeah. Let's see. I got Val-Shara and the Emerald Dream. Of the pillars of creation, only the Tears of Elune remained unclaimed by either the Legion or those who stood against them. There's a section about the Aegis of Agrimar before this, but I didn't think it was like super important, so I'm not going to go through it. For eons, the Tears had been kept safe in Val-Shara. It was here, millennia ago, that Malfurion Stormrage first learned Druidism under the tutelage of the wild god Cenarius. So it's in the forest of Val-Shara, where Shaladrasil is, that he initially learned this Druidism. I would also remind you that Malfurion says that Val-Shara is the place on Azeroth that is closest to the Emerald Dream. He says this in some of the intro quests to Val-Shara when you're playing through the main storyline of Legion. Sigrid, thank you very much for the Prime Gaming sub. Welcome. Thank you so much. Okay. It was here millennia ago that Malfurion Stormrage first learned Druidism under the tutelage of the wild god Cenarius, who bestowed him the power to commune with nature itself. In channeling this early druidic magic, Malfurion found his own pathway to the Emerald Dream, a vast dimension of pure, untainted nature, a blueprint for what Azeroth might have been, were it never touched by mortal hands. That's not a good sign in my opinion. I don't know, dude. I don't know. The green dragon aspect Ysera watched over this realm, studying and stewarding its verdant life with most of her green dragonflight. The night elves who followed Malfurion into the Emerald Dream became druids as well, finding lessons in every blade of grass and all manner of life, deepening their connection to nature and their understanding of its power. They turned Val-Shara into a paradise, as close an echo of the Emerald Dream as Azeroth could be. Here the world tree Shaladrasil grew, and many beings, dryads, furbolgs, keepers of the grove, moonkin, and more, tended the forests in harmony with the night elves. Thousands of years ago, the relative peace Val-Shara had known abruptly ended. Xavius, the insidious lord of the satyrs, had helped Sargeras and the Burning Legion invade Azeroth, beginning the War of the Ancients. Prior to Sargeras' coming, Xavius had been a night elf, and a master of arcane magic, who had risen until he was second only to Queen Ishara, but Sargeras twisted his form so that he might better serve the Dark Titan. After many battles, Malfurion eventually defeated Xavius by imprisoning him within a tree, but this tree was lost amid the Sundering. Thousands of years passed at the bottom of the sea, as Xavius was touched by the same void corruption that had claimed Queen Ishara and turned her followers to Naga. Now, as a servant of the old gods, Xavius desired nothing more than the total corruption of all that was good in the world. Later, when the Gul'dan of this timeline raised the Broken Isles, he had also raised Xavius' tree. The satyr was quick to seize on this chance and manipulated an archdruid into grafting a branch of his tree onto the sapling, Teldrassil. This gave Xavius a path into the Emerald Dream. For many years, the druids and keepers closest to nature sensed a dark influence threatening the dream, but could not determine its source. Malfurion had already ventured into the Verdant Realm to drive back the nightmare and defeat Xavius once before, sealing him away in the Rift of Aln. But the Satyr Lord's Dark Master fought to keep its hold on the dream. With the arrival of the Legion, however, Xavius and his master grew bolder, sensing their hour was close at hand. I think I'm going to read the whole... Let's see. I'll just read this specific section. Kind of like how the Jedi built a temple on top of Sith ruins on Coruscant. All these utopias keep attracting chaos and disaster. So the next section's part of the Tears of Elune. It's about Ysera. It says... So we're going to have to talk about this. Upon realizing that she had to pick between Ysera and Malfurion, Tyrande and the champions raced back to the Temple of Elune where they were forced to fight and to defeat the fallen Ysera. As the green aspect died on the temple's stones, a sudden lunar eclipse occurred. So we need to talk about this really quickly because Chronicle is claiming that a lunar eclipse occurred in Val-Shara. Well, I'm going to show you guys why this doesn't make any sense and talk about why this may be occurring. This could simply be a typo, but I'm not so sure that it is. So let's just watch this real quick. So this happens during the daytime, but we're in Val-Shara, which is a place that is as close to the Emerald Dream as you could possibly get. So maybe that has to do with it. It's easier to mistake the name, but nobody mistakes the visual. It's daytime, clearly. Sun is out. This certainly appears to be the moon moving in front of the sun, which we refer to as a solar eclipse. A lunar eclipse is when the Earth passes between, or is between the sun and the moon and casts its shadow upon the moon. For this to be a lunar eclipse, the source of light couldn't be the sun. The Tearstone of Elune legendary quote from earlier might apply here. Whoops. Which says, the myth surrounding Elune, one of the few true deities of Azeroth, suggests her true identity might not yet have been fully understood. Who do you guys think would have control over the movement of celestial bodies around Azeroth? Like, this isn't a fucking mystery, right? This isn't a fucking mystery, right? I think it's pretty obvious. The Titans, would they not? Like, or maybe it's Azeroth. Maybe she can move them. But I would think it's gotta be the Titans. Elune's identity being obscured, once again, I think is because she's probably on the Titan Pantheon. I think that there is a very reasonable chance that this here is like an ordered Elune. What we know as Eonar is actually Elune. I mean, I think it's interesting that Eonar has white eyes and the deity who speaks through Tyrande to the Winter Queen has white eyes, and you never see her face. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's convenient that she's been able to remain hidden. Oh, yeah, I want to read the rest of this to you. So it says here... So after the lunar eclipse thing... Let me just continue here. After the lunar eclipse thing... and I'm going to fly to Val-Shara really quick. So... It says here, Ysera's service to Elune and her connection to the Emerald Dream had bound her soul to the cycle of life and death. And it's just like, this type of shit really makes me think like Life Binder. Remember in Chronicle Volume 1 where it told you that Eonar is the one who created Ysera? And then we go to Shadowlands and they're like, oh, you're my sister. And then we're like, wait, Elune is the Winter Queen's sister? And then I was like, wait a second. The Chronicle said that Ysera was blessed by Eonar, so why are they confusing that now? There's just so much overlap between the identity of Eonar and Elune that it's really hard for me to fucking get around. It says here, her soul was drawn into the Shadowlands to Ardenweald, where it would slumber until such a time as it could be reborn into the dream. Ysera's soul disappeared in a burst of starlight, and a shower of flora blossomed before the champions. From a large vine, the purified tears of Elune bloomed, which the champions claimed and entrusted to Dalaran. The forces of Azeroth now had 4 of the 5 pillars of creation. All that remained was the single pillar held by Gul'dan, the Eye of Amin-Thul. Though the heroes had gotten what they came for, their work was far from finished. Malfurion remained missing. Corruption still blighted Val'Sharah, and Xavius had not yet been defeated. The champions had lost valuable allies in Ysera and Malfurion, but they had gained a foothold at the Temple of Elune, where more heroes had rallied to their side. Now was the time to venture into the Emerald Nightmare, to confront Xavius and purge all that he'd corrupted. The heroes pursued the Nightmare Lord into Darkheart Thicket, within the tangled roots of Shaladrasil. There, Xavius tortured his ancient enemy, Malfurion. After vanquishing the Nightmare Lord, Malfurion was freed and remained thankfully uncorrupted. However, he explained that what the heroes had felled was only Xavius' shadow, not the fiend himself. To find Xavius, the heroes would have to climb the heights of Shaladrasil, where the Veil of the Dream was at its thinnest. You hear that shit? Climb up Shaladrasil, and the Veil of the Dream gets thinnest. Chat, I've said this before, there's a reason why world trees and shit are fucking planted on the top of big-ass mountains. There's a reason why that this is right next to High Mountain. There's a fucking reason why Nordrasil's on top of a big-ass mountain. There's a reason why the Zandalari and their Loa chose the fucking Mount Magumbala and the heights of the Zandalari fucking mountain range there for their shit. It's not a coincidence. If the Emerald Dream is some type of orbiting body in a sense, perhaps ascending to the boughs, sort of like we did in Amirdrasil as well, literally starts to thin the veil, and it bridges to another place. Funny how there are 7 blue pools around the court down there. Yeah, sure reminds you of another place, doesn't it? Yeah. Temple of Elune sure looks a lot like the seat of the Pantheon. And honestly, even that shape and motif in the architecture right there reminds me of some other stuff, but it's a different discussion. Also, for those that haven't done it, if you do Blackrook Hold, after the final boss, you can see Elune in the sky and she's partially eclipsed. I don't really know what that's about, and I don't think it ever explains why this is occurring. The time during which you go to Blackrook Hold and do these quests is prior to the death of Ysera. So to my understanding, there shouldn't really be any reason why Elune looks this way. But I'm going to quickly speedrun this dungeon so that I can show you. So anyone want to explain that? I don't really understand why this is occurring. This isn't new, no. It's always been there. Since Legion, it's been there. To find Xavius, the heroes would have to climb to the heights of Shaladrasil, where the Veil of the Dream was at its thinnest. There, a portal to the Emerald Nightmare could be found among the boughs of the rotting world tree. Accompanied by Malfurion, the champions wasted no time. While the Emerald Dream had been a vast, ever-changing dimension, bursting with nature magic and verdant beauty, the Emerald Nightmare was its opposite. A realm of decay and rot, where growing things were snuffed out or twisted into dark predators that fed off the weak. At the entrance to this realm of terror was Nethendra, the green dragon who was once the guardian of Shaladrasil, now reduced to a husk of all she had stood for. The champions defeated her and many other besides, once noble creatures. Druids and ancients now turned to moldering corpses, satyrs, and warped beings of the darkest horror. Inside, the heroes faced down more tormented guardians of the dream, nightmare dragons. The corrupted remains of Ysera's flight trapped inside the Emerald Dreamway and the wild god Ursoc, patron of the Furbolgs. Little could prepare the champions for the foe that stood before them and Xavius, the corrupted Cenarius himself. Xavius had distorted the demigod's perception of reality. In Malfurion and the heroes, Cenarius saw the source of the dream's corruption, and he attacked them with his full might, thinking he was defending the dream. The heroes reluctantly fought Malfurion's mentor, but only bringing him to the point of death would allow Malfurion the opening he needed to purify Cenarius' soul. Once the Lord of the Forest was subdued, Malfurion urged the heroes forward while he tended to his mentor. Ahead lay the Rift of Aln, where Xavius was at his most powerful and Malfurion at his most vulnerable. He would not risk falling under the influence of the nightmare as Cenarius had. The rift was dark and endless. As the heroes wandered its depths, they found swarms of creatures seeking to devour them until they found Xavius himself. By their hand, he breathed his last in the nexus of his own nightmare. With his death, the path the powers of the void had opened into the Emerald Dream was closed to them. The Emerald Dream was saved, which doesn't make any sense because the void corrupts after the fact, so it must have been the void flower then that's planted by who appears to be planted by Ysera. With his death, the path that the powers of the void had opened into the Emerald Dream was closed to them. The Emerald Dream was saved, but Val'sharah had nearly been lost. It would take time to heal Shaladrisil and the lands corrupted by Xavius, though the druids remained committed to restoring their home. Some druids, including Malfurion, decided to help the Horde and Alliance defeat the Legion. The entire world was imperiled, and they had an obligation to protect it. It's at this time that Khadgar finds a mysterious light-bound object, which had fallen from the Fellstorm over the Broken Isles. It does use the term light-bound with capitals. A landing just outside Suramar. He asked members of the Horde and Alliance to recover the artifact, although he didn't know exactly what it was. It radiated with enough holy energy that it might be wielded as a weapon against the Legion. The champions fought their way past the demons, who showed up to stop us, breaching the innermost reaches of the Exodar to the Vault of Lights, where they finally met with Velen. The Draenei leader identified the artifact as Light's heart, the sentience core. They call it the sentience core of the Prime Naru Zira, which contained her vast knowledge of the universe. She would know of a way to defeat the Legion. All the heroes had to do was bring the artifact before the Naru Oros, the last of Zira's line, to unlock it. I also didn't know that Oros, I guess I didn't realize this, Oros is part of Zira's line? The fuck does that mean? Like Naru family line? What the fuck is that? I guess I didn't realize that back in the day. Okay, I'm gonna read all this. I'm gonna read this. Velen and the heroes went immediately to Oros to ask for assistance. Unfortunately, they were skirted by the Legion. When the heroes arrived at the seat of the Naru, that's what it's called, the seat of the Naru inside the Exodar, Rakish had already critically wounded Oros. Velen attempted to heal Oros, but Rakish quickly intervened and slaughtered him. Oros. Aided by Velen, the champions were able to put High General Rakish on the defensive, but after a sudden revelation, the Prophet urged the heroes to subdue, not kill, Rakish. It's because he's his son, Velen's son. Seeing that the Exodar and all its inhabitants' lives would be forfeit if they did not defeat Rakish, the champions laid low the fell general. Velen rushed to the villain's side as he died, having realized mid-battle that he knew this fallen Eridar. In another lifetime, Rakish had been Velen's son, the one he had lost when Sargeras and the Burning Legion had taken control of Argus millennia ago. Prophet Velen had seen a vision of this moment when his son had been born, but he did not understand it at the time. This, the hour of his son's death, also marked their bitter reunion. I guess I had forgotten that Velen had a vision the moment his son is born of him dying. That's kind of fucked up. While Velen grieved for his son, the champions of Azeroth returned to Dalaran, bringing word of what had transpired in the Exodar to Khadgar. With Oros gone, they would need to find another way to access the knowledge within Light's heart. Listen to this. Khadgar scoured the archives in Dalaran before discovering a text stating that Zira and Elune may have shared a celestial connection. It stood to reason that the tears of Elune could similarly unlock Light's heart. And using the tears, the heroes found success. If I had to define the celestial connection between Zira and Elune, I would probably say that it's ENR. And that's probably a dumb thing to some people, but it probably means nothing. But I pointed out a long time ago that the runes above Zira's head, I think, are an anagram for the word ENR. To me, that looks like an O-E-R-A and an N, which could mean nothing, but the fact that this chick goes by the Light Mother, I think is kind of telling, personally. Could be an anagram. I could just also be an idiot. But yeah, I thought that was kind of hard to ignore. I already watched the cinematic. Yeah, the Naru created in the ordering of the cosmos, so Titan involvement. Well, yeah, because listen to what it says here. It stood to reason that the tears could unlock Light's heart, and in using the tears, the heroes found success. Don't you also think it's like uncanny that ENR doesn't have a pillar of creation, except she does, and it's the tear of Elune? Don't you think it's also weird that there's a story saying that ENR planted a world tree that she was allegedly gifted by Elune a branch of, and she smiled knowing that the legacy of Elune would endure? Like, this all makes me feel like ENR is Elune. It's why Ysera was crossed over as their aspect, even though that wasn't true. Even though we see Elune speak through Tyrande. But the thing is that ENR doesn't exhibit the same type of, like, starry night warrior power. That's why it doesn't really make sense to me. So perhaps ENR is a fragment of Elune, a being separated into multiple beings. Could be possible, which we talked about before. It says here, as the artifact's power was unleashed, the consciousness of the champion of Azeroth was projected to Zira's location, to the crucible of all creation in the Great Dark Beyond, and it turned out that Zira was hiding on the Zenidar in the orbit of Argus. There, the Prime Naru revealed that the Titans had long ago fallen in battle to Sargeras and the Burning Legion. Interesting how Zira knows all this. From the remains of an endless number of ravaged worlds, survivors had come together under one banner to form the Army of the Light. This group was even now making its last stand on the remains of Argus, the Burning Legion's homeworld. Should they fall, the Legion would relaunch its burning crusade, putting even more worlds in their sights. To triumph over the Legion, however, Zira needed to find Illidan Stormrage, the one destined to end the Age of Demons. Could ENR have been Elune at some point and then changed by the Titans? Yes. What I'm implying is that perhaps ENR is the orderly result of the Titans forcing their control upon Elune, or her allying with them and taking upon a more orderly form. That's kind of what I'm suggesting. That perhaps similar to, elves going from trolls to elves, maybe Elune went from a more primal form to something more orderly. Something like that, It would be more compelling if ENR looked like a night elf, but she doesn't. I feel like that'd be a pretty dead giveaway, though. It says the Golden One there is whispers that say the Golden One claims a vacant throne. The Crown of Light will bring only darkness. And while, yes, I do think this is probably talking about Turalyon and perhaps some other characters, I really think ENR is the Golden One, claiming a vacant throne. The reason why I think that is because I think she's inspired by a Norse deity called Gulveig, who some postulate as the same deity as Freya, who just happens to be the keeper's name of Eonar. And she's golden, clearly a different color from Kaz and Agramar and Sargeras. And when you look at her on Wowhead, she's very clearly like golden and metallic. And she's also the first one to land on the seat of the Pantheon, which I think is really interesting and telling. So she's the only one that doesn't get captured. She's the first one to land on the seat. She's the one to tell Aman'Thul it is time. She's literally golden. I don't know. Something here. And she's got white eyes. Okay, this is one of the big things that kind of like got me, because I thought back to the cinematic, with Elune in the Winter Queen, and thinking, eyes are the windows to the soul. And I just remember, seeing the vessel that Tyrande becomes.
This one. Tyrande.
And it's just like, fuck. And when I think of the crown of light will bring only darkness, I'm like, well, shit. I don't know, dude. They have to be related in some way. It says here, though she was felled by the blade of Sargeras, the Lifebinder's essence escaped the grasp of the Dark Titan. After millennia spent hiding in isolation, Eonar's sanctuary has been discovered by the Legion. Should her soul fall into the enemy's hands, Eonar's powers of nature and growth will be perverted to make the Burning Crusade unstoppable. And I just kind of feel like am I mistaken in what fell is? Like,
Gul'dan, I believe in the Fell. His death magic has made me powerful. You'll see.
What kind of death magic turns you green, bro? And then if you drink more of it, you turn red?
You feel the strength of 5. You owe it to your clan to return. Make your warriors unstoppable.
Blackhand. Frostwolf clan. Not quite the monsters I was expecting.
Your warriors seem pleased with Gul'dan's gift.
Hulk and Red Hulk?
You don't want his magic?
In battle.
Strong enough without.
Why be strong enough when there is stronger still?
You see him like actively growing? A price paid and lives taken.
Desperate. You're green.
Warcraft movie Gul'dan.
Still.
I don't know, bro. To me, it seems like the Legion already had the powers of nature and growth. I mean, I could be wrong, but like, it kind of seems to me like they already had that. So how is that possible? Sacrificial healing sounds like growth to me. That's life magic, yo. Vitality, growth. So, led by Zira and its light-forged forces, the refugees from hundreds of fallen worlds had come together to form the army and fight Sargeras. On the planet Argus, once the homeworld of the Draenei, now the Legion's seat of power, the Army of the Light waged an endless war against the demonic forces. Zira and High Commander Lothraxion, a light-infused Nathrazim, commanded these holy warriors in their eternal battle. Zira and Lothraxion had chosen Turalian and Illyria to bolster their forces, so Lothraxion was part of that choice. As they saw a unique destiny set before the two heroes, they would discover an emerald star, which could put a stop to the Legion. Knowing their actions could save Azeroth where their son, Eretor, still lived, the heroes gladly lent sword and bow to their endeavor. Turalyon swore fealty to the light and ascended into an immortal, light-forged body. But Illyria's parallel path would sharply diverge. On a raid of a Legion prison, Illyria fell victim to an attack, during which she was infused with void energy. The power granted her visions, and she became determined to learn more about this strange force. But the void directly opposed the light, and Zira forbade her from exploring it further, even if it could grant their army an edge against the Legion. Sometime later, Illyria and Turalyon were dispatched on a mission to Argus, but as they acted on their objective, they were set upon by an endless swarm of demons. Defeat seemed inevitable, but Illyria called upon the void, opening a portal for them to escape, and this is the stuff from 1,000 Years of War. Turalyon's light-forged body was in agony as she pulled him through the void portal, their hands burning at each other's touch when they emerged on the other side. Illyria told her beloved to return to Zira and Lothraxion. She had to know more about the void powers blossoming within her. She left through another portal as Turalyon mournfully watched. Illyria's search would eventually land her in a Legion prison alongside Locust Walker, an ethereal who had mastered the powers of the void. The Locust Walker taught Illyria much about the relationship between light and void, including how to find and maintain sanity in its maddening emptiness. She learned that neither light nor void held every answer, and that her destiny, and the destiny of all things, lay somewhere at their crux. Illyria would ultimately cut her lessons with the Locust Walker short to return to her husband and the Army of the Light, who needed her help repelling a Legion assault. Unfortunately, though Zira granted Illyria some leniency for exploring void magic, she was deemed too great a risk to continue among their ranks and was imprisoned. Time passed and the Army of the Light continued to fight and lose. As their situation grew more dire, Turalyon recorded a plea for help with Light's heart and ejected it, hoping their message would make it to the people of Azeroth. By the time Light's heart safely arrived on Azeroth, millennia had passed for Illyria and Turalyon in the Twisting Nether, yet only a few decades had elapsed on Azeroth. The Sons of Lothar and their exploits were still within the living memory of those in the Alliance. As soon as Khadgar heard the Lost Paladin's voice, he knew the message that Light's heart held was real. Then it goes to the soul of the Demon Hunter, Illidan, which was on the Naglfar, which is a ship owned by Helya. So we gotta go get his body, we gotta go get his soul. We get his soul. As she took her final breath, the sorceress cursed Odin's name, but there was only malice, not magic, in her words. The curse she placed on the halls of Valor disappeared, and Odin and his Valorjar were freed from their lofty prison. The Nightfallen Rebellion. One part about it is I wanted to read a couple things it looks like. The time was short. The Nightborn banished from Suramar would not last long in their current state. Deprived from magic of the Sunwell they had long thrived on, they would soon waste away into terrifying, mindless creatures known as the Withered. Thalyssra enlisted the Horde and Alliance's help in solving this problem. Their combined efforts soon yielded a possible solution: an Arkandor seed, found deep within the ruins of Shalaran and the Moonshade's sanctum. Thalyssra ordered the seed planted, and as it grew into a full tree, so did her rebellion. Integral to Thalyssra's efforts was Chief Telemancer Oculeth, a master of portal magic who created an elaborate series of portals into and out of the city. With his network, the Nightfallen began to slowly turn the city against Elisand. When the Grand Magistrix rationed Arkwine, a vital source of magical sustenance from the Nightwell, the rebellion used the network to steal and distribute it in secret, winning supporters to their cause. And I actually remember doing these quests, which is really cool. The Nightfallen and champions from the Horde and Alliance secured an advisory seat on Elisand's inner council for Lunastra, a rebel sympathizer. The heroes also helped Arcanist Valtrois, I don't fucking know, obtain a map of Suramar's ley lines from the Archway, a matrix of abandoned tunnels beneath the city. Throughout all these efforts, the Nightfallen ran targeted insurgent operations around the city, assassinating Elisand's generals and advisors, including Melandris, which is part of one of the dungeons, Court of Stars. Thalystra's betrayer, and attacking the demonic forces occupying the city. As time passed, the Arkandor tree reached full maturity thanks to the many efforts from both the Nightfallen and their allies in the Horde and Alliance. When fully grown, it bore a unique fruit, one very much welcomed by the rebels. Its fruit could reverse their withering and cure them of their dependence on the Nightwell's magic. With this development, Shalaran went from a crumbling ruin to a lively hub for both the Nightfallen rebellion and the growing number of refugees fleeing Suramar. I think that's pretty fucking interesting. The Arkandor. I remember restoring it in Legion, not really thinking too much about what it was. This seems to be perhaps some type of arcane-infused tree. I can't get enough of the boys at BDS, Cutsy and Bob on top of the world. Dude, I can't believe Cutsy made a fucking hole in one. That shit's insane. That's crazy. Blood Totem, High Mountain Chug, Demon Blood. No, they did, and I think they transformed a little bit. They're the only elves who can do that, which is funny to me. Yeah, Christabel, well, there's a reason for that, I think, and that's due to one of the raid bosses inside of the Nighthold. High Botanist Talarn, who is said to be solely responsible for the delicate infusion of arcane into the nature of Suramar. And so the implication is that he found a way to infuse these arcane, and there's also a solar version of him as well, magics potentially into the wildlife itself, which could have been where this came from. In origin or something. It was something to kind of think about. So yeah, he was, and we killed him. So, we killed him, obviously. None of these actions went unnoticed by the Grand Magistrix. However, in an act of cruelty and desperation, she deployed her demonic as well as Nightborn followers into the Waning Crescent district of the city, a known hotbed for rebel activity. On her orders, they slaughtered nearly every civilian there. Sad few escaped the massacre, so it's pretty fucked up, because at this point, Elisande is just massacring her people, who she did all this to allegedly protect in the first place. It's like, come on, bro. Matters only worsened as more citizens continued to disappear from Suramar. An investigation revealed the terrible lengths Elisande was willing to travel to achieve peace in her city. These vanished citizens' souls were being siphoned to power the Legion. The Nightborn of Suramar had seen enough. Open war bathed the once peaceful city's streets in violence. Looking to seize their chance, Khadgar called upon all those willing within the Alliance and the Horde to aid the Nightfallen, though many factions were fighting the Legion elsewhere. The Elves of Azeroth heeded the call to help their fellows. Tyrande Whisperwind shows up, later the Adrin as well, Varisa Windrunner. They march on Suramar, but having dispatched Elisande's most loyal captains and lieutenants, they close in on the Nightspire. It says here, hold on. The combined elven force soon marched on Suramar, but the Grand Magistrix had intense powers of her own. She captured the assembled army in a massive time lock enchantment. Desperate, few rebels escaped, including Thalystra, Liadrin, Tyrande, and Khadgar. Reassembling their much smaller number, the Nightfallen scoured their intelligence for a less direct access point into Elisande's seat of power. Their path came from Lilith Lunastra, who had discovered a breach into the sanctum of Order, which is one of the lower sanctums in Suramar City. It's literally called the Sanctum of Order. That's pretty wild. Can I share a video for you to check out? Not at the moment. What is it? You could put it in the React Request channel in the Discord. It says here, with help clearing the way and destroying the magical barrier that protected it, Thalystra's rebels had at last penetrated the Nighthold. Their first priority, disrupt the magic powering Elisande's time spell and free their allied army. With the elven forces freed, the battle resumed in earnest outside, with forces of the Horde attacking the Archway, which fed power to the city above, and the Alliance attacking the Court of Stars, a noble district of the city. So here they assign those things to two different factions. Who cares? At the end of the day, I don't give a shit. One of us can be responsible for one thing, one of us can be responsible for the other. It doesn't really make a difference to me. The description of it is as follows. Today we decode the Shadowlands. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I watched that earlier. If it's the Zaxxas video, we watched that earlier. It should be on YouTube in a day or two. Let's see. Okay. Unfortunately, the Archmage Khadgar and his allies arrived at the top of the Nighthold just as Gul'dan locked himself inside the massive Eye of Aman'Thul, calling forth his demonic lieutenants to defend him while he completed his spell work. The spirit of Sargeras was already entering Illidan's body. After 10,000 years, the Dark Titan would soon have a new avatar on Azeroth. So again, the whole point of the Legion's invasion here was to get alternate Gul'dan to finish the work at the tomb, and then to put the fucking spirit of Sargeras inside of Illidan. So the whole premise was that, similar to Elune kind of using Tyrande as her vessel, though invoked by Tyrande, that Sargeras was going to go inside of Illidan and he would have been his vessel, which would have been fucking sick. After 10,000 years, okay, but the heroes would not be so easily beaten. Vanquishing Gul'dan's allies, the Warlock himself was forced to do battle and was subsequently defeated before the ritual could be completed. With Light's heart, Khadgar joined the heroes, reuniting Illidan's soul with his body. In an instant, the Demon Hunter was reborn, more powerful than ever before, which I think is very interesting. His first act was to slay Gul'dan in the same manner the Warlock had felled King Varian, infusing him with raw, fell magic until all that remained was ash and bone. In doing so, Illidan utterly destroyed the Warlock's body, crumbling Gul'dan's skull in his hand. Gul'dan's defeat marked a major turning point for the fight against the Legion. His efforts to return Sargeras to Azeroth had severely harmed the Legion, providing his enemies with a powerful new ally to their cause. His gambit also lost the Legion the final pillar of creation. Khadgar teleported the final pillar, the Eye of Aman'Thul, back to safety in Dalaran. Along with the rest of the Nightfallen Rebellion, the Lysra would lead Suramar into a new era, one without the influence of the Nightwell. The Eye of Aman'Thul had stabilized the magical font, but without its power, the Nightwell would die. Though several Nightborn came forward with solutions to this matter, the Lysra felt the font should fade, along with the Nightborn's troubled past. They would move forward free from their magical addiction, thanks to the fruit of the Arkandor, and in lockstep with their fellows in Azeroth, in whose defense they would now lend their strength. I hope when we see them again, they vesseled right in the middle of the throne. The react will be on YouTube later this week. Cool. With Gul'dan's death, the champions were poised to retake the Broken Shore, but the Deceiver had one final trick. His vessel was set on a crash course with Argus, once homeworld of the Eridar, so it was his plan the whole time. Now the seat of power for the Burning Legion. All would perish in the ensuing collision. Using the power of the Sargarite Keystone, an artifact the Illidarian Wardens had reclaimed from Cordana Felsong, Illidan opened a massive rift in the fabric of the universe, through which Azeroth could be seen. Khadgar quickly teleported the heroes to the relative safety of their world. For a moment it seemed as though they had been saved, but the rift to Argus was not closing. In fact, it had only grown. Overhead, Argus hung in the sky, the two worlds now dangerously close, connected. The Demon Hunter, however, was pleased. He had long dreamed of a path to the Legion homeworld. Now, it was right before him, an opportunity to end the Dark Titan's machinations once and for all. Veilwalker Feridun, thousands of years ago, as the Quel'Dorei were just beginning to unravel the mysteries of the Arcane, a small enclave of druids met with the first of the Elven Magi. In the pale moonlight, they formed an order that would seek to bring the Arcane into balance, using nature itself as a vessel. The Arcane being inherently chaotic, as it were. Using nature itself as a vessel to bring Arcane into balance. Interesting. Small conclave of druids met with the first of the Elven Magi. That's regarding the creation of the Arkandor. interesting. That's a way to look at it. Okay, let me go to the next position, next spot here. So one thing I want to show you guys is the artwork of Argus as it hangs in the sky. Now this might be available on the wiki. So let me see if I can pull this art up. Oh yeah, here we go. So this art I think is real fascinating. There's something about this art that I think is just like, I don't know, it's very interesting to me. And that is that inside the rift, you can see the stars, but outside of the rift, you don't. It's a very interesting design choice. I don't know why they did that. Josmith, thank you so much for the Prime Gaming sub. I don't know if this is some type of implication for the veil, the star veil. If it's day, you won't see the stars. So is it always nighttime on Argus? It's space? No, I get that, but you see space? Yeah, no shit, dude. So Argus has no sun because he's in the twisting nether? Well, I think that Argus might actually be in the Great Dark Beyond. Because there are NPCs who say it's the greatest world in the Great Dark. No, I mean there's no atmosphere in that rift. Oh, you mean it's just a body floating in space. Right. Where you're saying Azeroth has like an atmosphere and all sorts of shit distorting it. I think that's very interesting. Let me read more of this. And there's the Lord of Ravens turning the key. I wanted to read Son of the Wolf, which is about Anduin Wrynn. Although Anduin Wrynn had agreed to accept his father's mantle, the young king continued to struggle with the burden of leadership. Word of his father's death had reached him not by an Alliance courier, but by a Legion assassin, one that the prince dispatched with ease, which was a dreadlord, by the way. Reading his father's final message, however, Anduin couldn't help but question whether he was fit to bear his crown. Listless and unsure of himself, he left his advisors in charge of Stormwind and journeyed to the Broken Shore to visit the place where his father had made his final stand. Good thing this dreadlord went and did this, I guess, huh? The young king hoped that there he could achieve some measure of closure. 1,000 Years of War says they are fighting through the Twisting Nether and not the Great Dark Beyond, and it makes more sense for it to be in the Twisting Nether at this point. I think that it is stated in Chronicle earlier that Argus may have originally been in the Great Dark Beyond and then moved into the Twisting Nether. But I'm not sure if that's entirely correct. You have to fact check me on that. As he explored the Broken Shore, Anduin stumbled upon Charlemagne, the legendary twin blades his father had wielded. So I want to put this out there that Charlemagne is referred to as twin blades, which is something that Anshe wielded. Remember that Charlemagne can be split into Shalator and Elemaine seemingly by willpower of the wielder. So I just think it's important to note that Anshe's twin blades could very well be represented in a similar manner to how Charlemagne works. Illidan Novel says it's on the brink of the Great Dark Beyond and the Twisting Nether. Yeah, that's very interesting. It says here, amid the ashes where his father had breathed his last, as Anduin touched the blade, the light granted him a vision of his father, standing in the Valley of Heroes. There, Anduin asked his father for guidance. As he emerged from his vision, the light within Charlemagne reignited. Reconnected with his purpose and his father's legacy, Anduin returned to Stormwind City, determined to end the war. Many had known him as a man of peace, always seeking to know varied perspectives, even those of his foes. The Legion saw Anduin as a naive leader, the weakness to be exploited, but they could not know that Anduin embodied one of Azeroth's greatest strengths. Anduin's light shone on all who knew him. He could see past differences and unite disparate peoples against a common foe. He saw peace and the betterment of all Azeroth as a common goal to achieve, but was unafraid to fight for these ideals if called upon to do so. Anduin had much to learn about leadership and command. He was a different kind of leader than his father, but one whom the Alliance came to rely on, particularly as they sought to survive the deadly conflicts to come. This is a section from Crown of the Triumvirate. It says, "It became clear." It says, "Beyond the terrible word that Agramar served the Legion, Illyria and Turalyon saw helpful information. If Argus possessed a world soul, it had power beyond measure. It became clear that Antorus, the Burning Throne, was more than a fortress. It was also a massive engine, harvesting the power of the World Soul to expedite the endless reincarnation of the demons of the Burning Legion. If Antorus was destroyed, the Burning Legion's infinite army would become much more finite." It just really concerns me that we find the Titans sitting upon pedestals that may very well be meant for them. ENR isn't captured, opens immediately a gateway into Antorus. Fuck me, dude. There's even information that states that the Titans used to control and enslave the fucking demons before Sargeras set them free, which doesn't make any sense because many members of the Legion feel as though they are shackled to the will of the Legion because of the power of Fel, which is why Illidan Stormrage starts helping them break free of that by using the arcane energies in the confluence of ley lines beneath Karabor, i.e. the Black Temple, to free them from this addiction. Fel, as we know, causes growth, rage, spontaneous, just like aggression. And I'm gonna be honest, the fucking life surges that happen in the Emerald Dream aren't that different from that. They cause the same type of fucking reaction in the wildlife around there. So I'm sorry, but like, there is a possibility, there is a universe in which the motherfucking Titans are running the Burning Legion. And that we're led to believe it's someone who else that it wasn't. But I don't really, regardless of that, like, it doesn't have to be that way. But just like this, it's a Titan facility. I just don't know, dude. It just doesn't seem right. I don't know. The tensions persisted between Illidan and Turalyon. Let's see do I really need to read all that? I think we all know how that happened. Okay, I'm gonna read you this because it's the Crown of the Triumvirate. Tensions persisted between Illidan and Turalyon, but preparations for the coming assault left little time for anything else. Champions of Azeroth worked to thin the Legion's numbers, obtain valuable resources for the Army of the Light's weapons and light-forged warframes, and secure territory near the point of their assault. In their pursuit, they crossed paths with Agramar and were only narrowly saved by Turalyon, who teleported them back to the Vindikar. Magni's vision was true. The Burning Legion was well protected by power beyond the Allied forces' imagining. It became clear that the defenders of Azeroth and the Army of the Light were woefully unprepared to enter Antorus. They'd come too far to fail at this crucial hour. Besieging Antorus could not work with their current forces, but Velen knew of a power that could penetrate the Burning Legion's fortifications. Whatever shape they took. In the days when the uncorrupted Eridar still ruled Argus, the trio of Velen, Kil'jaeden, and Archimonde had each held a piece of a magical crown. This is not a good start. This crown was known as the Crown of the Triumvirate, and while the individual pieces possessed little power, they held immense strength when brought together. Velen carried his piece, the Eye of Prophecy, with him always, but where the other two pieces, the Sigil of Awakening and the Crest of Knowledge, Awakening, and Prophecy, where the other two pieces were, he could not say. A strike force of heroes departed with Velen to the floating city of Eridath, once the Jewel of Argus, to track them down. After securing the ruins of the city, the champions underwent trials at Eridath's Conservation of Magic to obtain the Sigil of Awakening. Once in hand, however, Legion forces were alerted to the hero's presence, making the search for the Crest of Knowledge more difficult. The Legion's forces were led by Talgath, the Eridar who had long ago betrayed Velen's trust, taking his mate and son hostage during the fall of Argus. With the help of his champions, Velen laid low the fell Eridar and learned that the Crest of Knowledge had been discarded in the seat of the Triumvirate, along with the remains of Lura, a Naru who had helped Velen and the Draenei escape Argus. In its darkened state, Lura had become a beacon of void energy, calling powerful dark forces to it. Before Velen could venture farther into the seat, he was stayed by Illyria. Illyria had been touched by the void, making her uniquely suited to understanding the threat Lura posed and combating it. With help from the heroes of Azeroth, Illyria ventured through the Dark Temple, even encountering the Locust Walker, who had also been drawn to the void energy Lura was emitting. After defeating others who had come to claim Lura's power, the champions subdued the Dark Naru long enough for Illyria to defeat it. In the process, however, she consumed Lura's void energy, herself entering a void state. Following the battle, she left with the Locust Walker, who helped her gain control of her new form. Okay. Back at the Vindicar, the crown of the Triumvirate was whole again. Grand Artificer Rommel used the crown to enhance the main cannon of the Vindicar. The resulting blast tore an opening into the once impenetrable Antorus, an opening the Army of the Light and Defenders of Azeroth would eagerly exploit. I have to read you all of this shit, because the final sections of Legion here are fucking nuts. And some of them have incorrect information in them, and this part's fucking crazy. This is like one of the craziest sections of the whole book, page 120 and 121. Says right here, Engine of the Legion. Yeah, you're right, Nagria. It is interesting that mortals can take in a void state like a Naru. Engine of the Legion. From Light's breach, the Legion poured forth its many horrors. Fell machinations, Sargeras' fell hounds, and the twisted former war council of the Eridar, now the master tacticians of the Legion, all crashed against the allied armies of Azeroth and the Light. As champions delved deeper into the world, the full extent of Sargeras' plans were laid bare. Though the Titans had long ago fallen before Sargeras, their essences had survived and escaped his capture. Isn't this happen with Dreadlords? Or wasn't it stated that Frostmourne was supposed to be like enchanted in some way that wouldn't consume the soul of a Dreadlord? Isn't that how Mal'Ganis comes back? Or something? They're like impervious to it or something like that? And they were the ones behind Arthas finding it, obviously. I just think this is interesting. That the Titans didn't get captured by the blade, if it's like a Mourn Blade. That's correct, Terrell. Yeah, they're little like flame face guys, little flame sprout guys. It says here, but this was not enough to satisfy the Dark Titan. He hunted down and captured each until only Eonar the Lifebinder had evaded him, which is interesting because it says in Chronicle Volume 1 that Sargeras was unaware of the fact that the Titans had survived. I think it says he did not realize what had happened. So it's interesting now that they're saying, oh, this wasn't enough to satisfy the Dark Titan. He hunted down and captured each. And this doesn't mention Imonar the Soul Hunter at all, which is a fucking shame because that's how I assumed he had done this. But it seems that Imonar the Soul Hunter was there to fight us. A bounty was put on our heads and he had come to collect it. A bounty, which is interesting because when you defeat Argus, you collect loot from the bounty of the Titans, or the Titans' bounty or something like that. It says he hunted down and captured each until only Eonar the Lifebinder had evaded him. Champions defeated the Legion's portal keeper, Hazabel, and in doing so discovered a portal to Elunaria, the secret refuge of Eonar. Like, what? There, they defended the Titan from waves of Legion forces intent on capturing her power. After their defeat, the Lifebinder urged the heroes forward. Even from Elunaria, she could hear the tormented cries of the Pantheon back on Argus, within the Titan's stronghold. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you guys listening? Do you guys hear this shit? How the fuck is she doing all of this? How in the fuck? She evades. She knows about Argus. She's urging Magni into this place. She's the reason he showed up. She's the only one that doesn't get captured. She's the first to arrive on the seat of the Pantheon. She's the one to tell Amenthul that it is time. So maybe the Lifebinder wrested control from them, similar to Zoval, but I still think that there's something fishy as fuck going on. She's using nature magic. Yeah, her soul is a different signature than a pure arcane Titan, perhaps? I don't think the other Titans are pure arcane either. They have elemental alignments. Khazgaroth and Golganath certainly should. Amenthul definitely has an alignment, maybe even potentially to light. Because she ordered the demons and that's why they're green. I think that potentially if the Titans were in control of Argus's world soul, that they could use it as a point of infinite regeneration and basically frame Sargeras for running the Burning Legion when it's actually them. Do you think the voice Magni heard wasn't even Azeroth, but Eonar after all? Honestly, yes. I do think it was Eonar. It looks like now the pre-patch event is live on EU Realms, so allow me to say, hey EU, thanks for beta testing the pre-patch event for the real realms, Lamau. Them or her? Well, I still kind of think that maybe someone's controlling Eonar, so I think that the fact that the Primus's face is fucking all over Antorus the Burning Throne is pretty telling, to be honest with you. I think it's pretty darn telling. Eonar does have a commonality with an Arkandor. Maybe that's a recent development, an Elune development. There's been more and more stuff suggesting the possibility that they are the same being. Wait, what? You haven't seen? Yeah, if you haven't seen my Antorus the Burning Throne lore tour, I highly recommend you watch it. Because if you go through Antorus and you're able to not see the Primus's face, I will be very surprised. The Primus's face is literally, I'm not exaggerating this, it is literally all over Antorus the Burning Throne. All over Argus and their buildings and stuff like that. Could Eonar be a proxy for Elune? Yes. Never knew that. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. I should have gone to Dalaran and queued LFR. That's what I should have done. I fucked it up. But it's fine. We're not going to do a lore tour. Actually, I'm going to just queue LFR so I can get right to the end. Because we've already done Antorus the Burning Throne. There's no reason to be doing that. And this is kind of, this will get me hyped up to do like the Nighthold one and stuff like that. So I'm excited. Vindicar Matrix Core, lol. Champions defeated the Legion's Portal Keeper. Okay. After their defeat, the Lifebinder urged the heroes forward. Even from Elunaria, she could hear the tormented cries of the Pantheon back on Argus, within the Dark Titan stronghold. Glad we're just taking her word for it. Agrimar had been the first to break, but if the champions did not succeed, Sargeras would corrupt the entire Pantheon. The heroes continued onward, encountering a Legion Dreadlord they'd not seen since the dark years of the Lich King, Varimathras. He'd been broken by the Coven of Shivara, the same fell force entrusted with the task of warping the fallen Titans into Sargeras' dark pantheon, which is funny because Varimathras says the torment of those witches is like nothing. He can handle it, it's fine. I think that this also could relate to what Amenthul was saying. No, after all we have endured, it must not end this way. To me, it almost sounded like, I understand that they had endured the torment of the Legion, but I almost kind of wonder if they did it on purpose. After all we've done, after all we've endured and suffered, not even really thinking about Azeroth or the people there, after all we have endured, it must not end this way. Okay, bro, thanks for that. With the defeat of the Coven, Magni stayed behind to comfort the Pantheon. Now free, but dazed from eons of torture. Yeah, okay, they didn't seem that dazed on the fucking seat of the Pantheon. He urged the champions to continue forward, where the final Titan, Agrimar, still stood under the sway of Sargeras. So this is where Chronicle flat out tells you something that is not correct. Listen to this. At the seat of the Pantheon, the very cradle of creation, as Velen calls it, which they reiterate in this book, the heroes engaged Agramar in battle. That's not correct. The final Titan Agramar? Well, the final Titan in this case. They're saying the final Titan, like, it's not, don't take it too literal. It's not like capitalized or anything. It's not a title. It is in this case, in order, the final Titan to deal with in terms of what was happening in Antorus. Don't read too much into it, okay? But what's important is that it tells, where it says we fought him is incorrect. It says, at the seat of the Pantheon, the heroes engaged Agramar in battle. That's not correct. We're not at the seat of the Pantheon. You know what I mean? This is not the seat of the Pantheon. So I don't know why it's trying to claim, wow, why it's trying to claim that this is the seat of the Pantheon. It must be wrong. What if the seat was a part of Antorus once? Could have been. Could have been. It could have docked, you know, over here or something like that. Or maybe up on top or something. I don't know. We've also talked about how this place shares some similarities to First One's stuff, in my opinion. And how this could be Zareth, if there is such a thing, Zareth Tumult or something like that. I don't know. But it says here, the heroes engaged Agramar in battle. Once the Avenger of the Pantheon, Agramar had been changed into a Titan of Destruction. You queued for the seat of the Pantheon. That is true. This spot's very similar to the Heart of Eternity, World Soul at the end of this walkway. I did queue for the seat of the Pantheon LFR wing. Unless this is trying to tell you something. Which it very well could be. I mean, I think this is a Titan fucking facility. Why is it here? Because they fucking built it. The cocks. It says here. Agramar had been changed into a Titan of Destruction. Instead of what? Creation? Lol? Wielding his burning blade, Taishalak, he stood guard over the tormented world soul of Argus. Backed by Illidan, Velen, Turalian, and Illyria, the champions of the Horde and Alliance fought valiantly, ultimately subduing the Titan long enough for his essence to be freed of the avatar to which he had been bound. Let me say that again. The Horde and the Alliance fought valiantly, ultimately subduing the Titan Agramar long enough for his essence to be freed of the avatar to which it had been bound. So good to know Chronicle writers follow LFR Wings as lore. Surely we'd consider that a UI element. It's not the actual location, but the name given to the set of locations. That's how I interpreted it as well. It's weird, isn't it? They don't, the live. I don't think they do. I find these resurrected Titan Keepers very interesting. I have a feeling that these were alive before and got resurrected by Sargeras with his fire, just like Bolvar got revived by Alexstrasza. Maybe it's the same fire player, maybe. Fire of life. If all the Titans are dead at this point, what else are the Watchers to do except follow Sargeras' orders? Make a Titan facility on Argus? Well, these are seemingly completely different Watchers or Keepers. Dark Keeper Adis, for instance. Thank you. Let me keep reading, guys. It gets weirder. It gets weirder. We're not even done yet. So check this out. So, okay, one thing I want you to know is that one of the abilities Dark Keeper Adis uses, I think, is very important. So I'm going to let him cast it on me. Adis here is Steppenwolf. Is he going to cast it? Flames of Reorigination? Or is it that maybe he doesn't cast it? Maybe only the ad before him casts it. I thought he casted it. Punishing Flame. Punishing Flame. Do you think that Agramar is not bound into the service of Sargeras, but is instead being punished and probably bound the same way that Sargeras was. Think about it. Punishing flame. This could be a reach, but it almost sounds like he was set on fire as punishment. I don't know about this whole situation. It's very weird. Anyway, punishing flame. I thought he was going to cast Flames of Reorigination, because that is a spell that you can see in here. Now, Agramar used to have dialogue here, but they removed it. He said, "Mortals, for millennia I fought... for millennia..." What does he say? Let me go to it. Agramar... Wow. Who else would it be? This is what he said. He said, "Mortals, I wasted millennia fighting to spare you from corruption, until at last my eyes were opened to the truth. You are the corruption. We will save the universe by wiping all memory of you from existence. Soon comes the awakening of my brother, Argus. Together, our new pantheon will join the master in breaking your fetid world. You will not live to see it." Illidan Stormrage says, "I have heard all the prattling I can bear. Let us show this lackey of Sargeras that he has no claim to our world." This is where Velen says, Magni says, "You did it! Agramar's essence is free. He can stand beside his brethren once more." And then Illidan chimes in and says, "Our victories mean nothing, so long as Sargeras has the soul of Argus to fuel his infinite army. Azeroth remains in grave peril." Magni, of course, says, "The Titans can sever that connection, but not here. They need to bring the soul of Argus to their place of power, the seat of the Pantheon." Velen has to say, "The very cradle of creation, of course. Their final act will harness the last of Argus's power to imprison Sargeras, once and for all." Magni Bronzebeard says, "Heroes, I can signal the Titans to begin. Once they start their ritual, there's no turning back." And, yeah. He does have unused quotes. Sargeras will be pleased for Sargeras. He doesn't actually say any of those things, which is interesting. He says, "Join the master." He doesn't actually say Sargeras. I just think that's kind of weird. I don't know. That they had that, but they never used that dialogue. I don't know. It's kind of a strange thing. So anyway, we kick Agramar's fucking ass. Like this. The world soul is brilliant. And look, they say it's being bombarded by fell energy, but I don't know. It almost looks like nature energy with the green in there, man. It doesn't look fell to me, but I don't know. Maybe that's a stretch because it just doesn't seem to match what else we're seeing. So I'm just a little confused. I guess the fell green over there maybe is a little similar, but yeah, so here's that dialogue. "The Titans can sever that connection, but not here."
The Titans can sever that connection, but not here. They need to bring the soul of Argus to their place of power, the seat of the Pantheon.
The very cradle of creation.
How the fuck do you know?
The final act
The fuck do you know?
harness the last of Argus's power to imprison Sargeras once and for all.
The Boy King serves at the master's table. 3 lies will he offer you.
To begin.
The first lie been told. Bound by that throne? No. Free. Free. The next gonna come soon. Maybe they see this one.
All right, everybody, hold on.
The Pantheon took their places, channeling their diminished strength into the tormented world soul in an attempt to sever Argus's link to Sargeras. But the heroes were too late. For in this moment, Sargeras reached out, ordering the world soul of Argus itself to rise in accordance with his dark will. Argus rejected the Pantheon's interference, knocking the Titans back and forming as Argus the Unmaker.
That which you have stolen will be your undoing. Rise, Argus. Rise, my broken world. Mortals, the time has come to fight for the fate of your world.
Bolstered Though the Titans did not have the strength to fight him alone, the champions of Azeroth eagerly joined the fray. Bolstered by the cosmic strengths of the Pantheon, the heroes still entered an uneven battle against a powerful and chaotic foe. Argus's power was unlike anything the champions had faced before. Its massive scythe and fell abilities difficult to counter. But in the end, the heroes freed Argus of the torment Sargeras had inflicted on it for eons. Its fell abilities? Excuse me? Let me know in the mechanics where that exists. Cone of Death, Tortured Rage, Sky and Sea, Volatile Soul, Edge of Oblivion, Soul Burst, Soul Bomb, Sweeping Scythe. Excuse me, I'm looking for the fell abilities here. Constellar designates when Argus reaches 40% health, he's sufficiently weakened that Aman'Thul is able to subdue him with a temporal blast. However, the players must then contend with Argus's Constellar designates, who cast Cosmic Beacon, Cosmic Smash, Cosmic Ray, Star Blast, the Stellar Armory. When equipped with these arms, the designates will no longer use their other abilities and will instead engage in melee attacks. Sword of the Cosmos, Norganon's Aid, the Discs of Norganon, which expose the elemental weakness of the Constellar designates. Each designate takes 100% increased damage from a specific school of magic. Stage 4, the Gift of Life, the Forge of Loss. His Constellar designates buying him the time to regain his strength. Argus kills the players with Reap Soul. All hope would be lost were it not for the Titans. The end of all things. Argus ends creation, killing everything. That's pretty fucking nuts. Still looking for fell abilities. Mythic only? I've killed Mythic only. There are no fell abilities. The fell phase is Mythic only, isn't it? He doesn't use fell abilities. That's what I'm trying to point out to you. Argus, not even in Mythic, uses fell. But let me continue, because maybe we're wrong about that. Because what is fell? Green, right? It's fell green demonic magic, isn't it? That's what fell is, right? Listen to this. With the Legion's war engine deactivated, the Pantheon bade all return to Azeroth. For the first time in thousands of years, Sargeras was vulnerable, and the Titans would seize this chance to bring their wayward brother to justice. I almost feel like Azeroth. For the first time in thousands of years, Azeroth was vulnerable. But whatever. Illidan bade Velen farewell. The demon hunter was determined to stay behind and ensure the Dark Titan did not leave his prison. With this, the champions of Azeroth and the Army of the Light returned to the Vindikar. Argus was a broken world, but it had not perished with the nascent Titan's birth. Argus was a broken world, but it had not perished with the nascent Titan's birth. Chronicle Volume 1, I think, is meant to scare you into not wanting Azeroth to wake up, because in Chronicle Volume 1, it feels implied that bad things would happen to the mortals if the Titan woke up. That's a question I get all the time. Pyro, what happens if Azeroth wakes up? What happens to the world? Well, it says here, Argus was a broken world, but it had not perished with the nascent Titan's birth. The Chrokle had vowed to hunt down the Legion forces that still remained there, their hope being to ultimately fix what the Legion had set awry millennia ago. With this, the Vindikar departed for Azeroth, and the rift overhead joining the two worlds began to close. Sensing the interference of the Pantheon, Sargeras was poised above Azeroth, ready to strike. Sensing the interference of the Pantheon. It's interesting how Argus rejects, it says right here. It says, where did it say that? Argus rejected the Pantheon's interference, knocking the Titans back and forming as Argus the Unmaker. It's such a weird way to put that. Argus rejected the world, channeling their diminished strength into the tormented world soul in an attempt to sever Argus's link to Sargeras. They were trying to reestablish control of him. Am I the only one looking at it that way? The fuck? Over no. Let me go back to this. Sensing the interference, he summoned a massive sword and drove it into the world just as the Pantheon harnessed the last of Argus's power. That's very convenient. With arcane energy, the Titans reached out and retrieved Sargeras, binding him to the seat of the Pantheon where they might contain his destruction for all time. Ogmot's Dream Journal. Dat blade has shiny eye, always watching us. Why you no see it? 3 lies. The first one been told. Bound by that throne? No. Free. Free. The next gonna come soon. Maybe they see this one. Argus the Unmaker removed dialogue. Some removed, some not removed. Look at this. Quotes. Upon Argus dying, one of the quotes he can say is, free. Free. The Legion threatened Azeroth no longer, but there was little cause to celebrate. Azeroth had been gravely wounded, and none knew what this might mean. Magni Bronzebeard heard the World Soul's cries, and traveled far and wide seeking guidance, but none could give it to him. The sword alone had dealt its damage, but the sword was also imbued with fell energies. Let me read that again. The sword alone had dealt its damage, but the sword was also imbued with fell energies. This corruption was slowly poisoning the nascent Titan within. After seeking guidance from Khadgar, however, the Speaker and Archmage formed a plan. Leaders of the Alliance and Horde sent word to the same champions who had traveled to Argus, a number that included the heads of every Order Hall on Azeroth. Magni met the heroes in Silithus, the site of the wound. The Speaker told them of a great source of power, which was needed to drain the sword of its corruption and contain the fell power. Fortunately, every Order Hall had empowered its champions with legendary artifacts following the battle for the Broken Shore. Weapons that could be used to harbor this energy. From the Doomhammer to the Ashbringer, the Scythe of Elune to the Twin Blades of the Deceiver, champions raised these weapons, drawing out the poison from the corrupted sword. These weapons now crackled with a fell energy, and the sword's fell light dimmed. Holy fucking shit. What? Fucking what? What am I reading? These weapons now crackled with fell energy and the sword's fell light dimmed. What the fuck is fell? There was still work to be done at the wound, but the champions had blunted the worst of its effects. What would come next? Only time could tell. New life like rebirth? Yes. And that's the end of Legion.